What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a Week 11 first look NFL DFS Fanduel. We're heating up here. The RotoRadar NFL team is 9-1 on Fanduel this season on main slates, and we are back with a Week 11 video edition for a first look. We're recording this on Tuesday, November 15th, so obviously take everything in here as a grain of salt. This is more of a process type of play. I got the chat in here. We're talking it up. We're talking news, notes, and everything. Week 11 first look, crazy takes, crazy hot takes, but this will be more of a overall consensus of the slate, trying to identify top plays. We obviously know pretty much zero news at this point for the week, and things are only going to get crazier as we approach the holiday season. So without further ado, we're going to use this as more or less a baseline point for the start of our week and process. Starting off with the quarterback position, we have Josh Allen sitting at 9,200 at the top of the player pool. 1 week removed, or a couple days removed, from that Minnesota game where, I was hesitant on even saying he was going to play, and I feel like the Buffalo kind of shot themselves in the foot, giving Josh Allen an opportunity to play when he wasn't 100% healthy. Still did totally fine. I believe he will be on the injury report starting tomorrow. Probably got an off day today, and just one of those things where we're going to have to see how that kind of plays out. But you look at the QB position as a whole here at the start of the slate, and you see that you have Jalen Hurts, who struggled last night, still did just fine after struggling against the Washington Commanders. He's going to go up against the Indianapolis Colts, which is a return game for head coach Nick Sirianni, who used to call the plays in Indianapolis. Then you have Justin Fields, the fantasy superstar over the last month, 8,700 on FanDuel, the highest price that he's been on the slate. We'll also be talking about Justin Fields on the DraftKings first look. That's going to be coming out on Wednesday. YouTube coming out most likely Thursday morning or Wednesday evening. We also have Lamar Jackson taking on Carolina in what should be a streamer matchup of sorts if you're in fantasy season-long leagues. You have Joe Burrow, who, flashback to week 1, got totally decimated and had one of his worst NFL games of his career against his Pittsburgh team in week 1. You have TJ Watt back for Pittsburgh. Things are different now. Daniel Jones, 7,800 against Detroit. Kirk Cousins in the best game on the slate. It's one of the, and then Dak Prescott, obviously, in the best game on the slate as well. So we're all over the place for quarterback. I think people will gravitate towards Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, but you have a lot of interesting GPP options and swerves to make as well. Justin Fields against Atlanta is just such an insane matchup for a quarterback, and I don't even have to pull up the box score, but I'm going to do it anyway so we can all just kind of gaze in awe at what he's been doing the past 4 weeks. He has to be QB1 in the last month, and over the course of the season, this is going to be a guy that's probably going to finish at top 3, even though he had really bad a bad first month of the season. So I'll go back to what Chris in our chat said, one of our NFL analysts. He's QB1 rest of the season. Shouldn't really be a debate if he keeps doing what he's doing here. So Chicago going to be in the highest total game of the year. I just checked, it was 50.5 total points, and at this stage of the game in November, right before the week of Thanksgiving, it's kind of hard to get to a 50 game total on a main slate. So that is where that is. The passing attempts really didn't need to be prevalent on this in that last game, but 140, like if he's going to rush 10 to 12 times and get that kind of volume, I still feel like I'm not trying to chase 40-point ceilings here. I think that the floor for Justin Fields realistically is 22 FanDuel points. Like, I know that he hasn't gotten under that in 5 weeks, but I still feel like we're a little bit still overarching on the fact that he's had two really good weeks. But anyway, Justin Fields, 8,700, fantastic. I think he gets you 20 plus FanDuel points, and you play him here. So we're gonna slot in Fields as this first look build as we kind of progress through this slate. Other quarterbacks, like I said, I have interest in Burrow. I have interest in Jones. I think Kirk and Dak in the same game are really nice streamers for GPPs. Everything else is pretty trash. I was not going to say Russell Wilson's name. I don't buy into that. That's kind of just something that I think he needs to. I would much rather play Taylor Heineke going up against Houston. I know that that's not the best play either, but at least you get a better matchup there. So, other than that, QB position's pretty trash under the top range of guys. I think that the lowest I'd be willing to go, man, Mariota looks so bad on Thursday night. I don't think I can go back there. The lowest I would go would be probably Dak and GPPs, and then in cash, I mean, if you want to roll out Daniel Jones against Detroit, be my guest. Even that seems a little bit iffy, as he has not gotten too many touchdowns this season in general. But yeah, Fields, clear streamer play to me. We'll see what happens with, as the week progresses with Allen and Hurts and Lamar. But yeah, you have a lot of really tough decisions to make this week, and I think this is one of the easier ones to make, even despite all of the running back quarterbacks, the dual threats that we have here. Moving on to running back, we have Saquon Barkley going up against this Detroit team, just like I said about Daniel Jones. Barkley, he got the touchdown last week, and he was in a spot where he should have smashed, and he did. He got 35 rushing attempts against Houston, most on the season. I expect something relatively similar, right? 25 to 28 touches. Shouldn't be as involved in the passing game because they should be able to control this game. But I think that we're coming in here and, Vegas is giving Detroit a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, I guess. They're only the Giants come in as less than touchdown favorites here. It's kind of weird, right? Like, I think that kind of sticks out to me. So I like Barkley quite a bit. He's 9,700. 10K is kind of tough for me to pay for Barkley in this spot. But he is in such a island by himself where he's $700 more than the next available guy, which is Joe Mixon, who's coming off of that huge 5-touchdown game. I'm not going to chase a 9K Joe Mixon against the Steelers. It's just not something that I want to do, especially when we've seen Pittsburgh play the Cincinnati team before and they have TJ Watt back, et cetera, et cetera. Cash games, top overall plays, this is just not going to do it for me. Anyway, I think that we're kind of trending in this mid-price back look, so let's continue to go along here. Don't love the matchup for Taylor. Jacobs is interesting. He smashed Denver last time out. This Buffalo-Cleveland game is going to be really snowy, and again, we're definitely in this range where it's Tuesday, so we can't necessarily say whether or not this is going to be an actual snow game itself, but something worth noting there. Dalvin Cook in this game. In a very, very competitive, high-total game, high-paced game. Should be interesting to see. Keep an eye on the Zeke news, if Tony Pollard's going to be the main dude or not. And then, let's continue to move down the slate here. Dameon Pierce was a guy who we talked about on the first look last week as more of a GPP play, and then as the week kind of came along and went, you kind of circled around Pierce because where he was in the player pool compared to the workload of some of these other guys on the slate, kind of felt like you could trust that a little bit more, and I wish we got a little bit more from Pierce. I know we were talking about that before we started recording for this first look, and it was one of those things where I wish you got a little bit more. It didn't kill you in cash games, but you wish that you had something a little bit more to grasp onto. Houston, at the end of the day, is just an inefficient offense, and they will live and die by Pierce. And if he doesn't have a game smasher, then it's just not going to be a great game for Houston. As far as the other guys go, nothing has stood out to me in cash so far outside of just paying up for Saquon. So let's go ahead and dive in a little bit deeper here. I think you can start to look here in terms of injury at guys like maybe Kenyon Drake if Gus Edwards is sitting. Like I said before, keep an eye on Zeke. Jamal Williams is kind of interesting if DeAndre Swift continues to get his touch counts that he's getting. And then the first guy that kind of stands out is going to be Brian Robinson, who is 6,600 coming off of the Monday Night Football game, so he's not going to be priced accordingly. He had 26 rushing attempts in the last game, and now I'm not expecting 26, especially with Antonio Gibson still there. But he should have 15 to 18 rushing attempts in a spot where Washington's going to come in as a favorite. They're going to want to establish the run. They technically are in a playoff contention spot, and they're going to continue to run with the rookie here. And I feel like Robinson, Gibson got they both split touchdowns yesterday, right? So I think that what you can do here with the $6,600 Brian Robinson, at least as of Tuesday, is pencil him in as a good first look running back. Moving down the list here, and by the way, Antonio Gibson's a really, really strong GPP option as well. Moving down the list, though, you're getting into this range of pretty ugly plays normally, but I think this is where you're going to find a little bit of extra value here. You have Devin Singletary at 6,400. I don't mind that. Do I wish that he was priced lower? Always. If Damian Harris misses, we'll talk about Ramondre as the week goes on, but I don't want to get into that just yet. Khalil Herbert got hurt in the last game. I'm not suggesting playing two Bears, with a quarterback running back type of correlation. You can certainly do that in GPPs, but in cash games, you're picking one or the other. I still feel like, maybe if you lean going Josh Allen's direction, maybe Lamar, maybe Jalen Hurts, you can play David Montgomery at 6,200. I think that's a very solid way to go. I don't mind doing that. Now we get into the really juicy range where I feel like Melvin Gordon at 5,900 makes quite a bit of sense. And I say that with a sigh, obviously, but he's going to have, not the best workload, but with the price that they're giving you here, it's one of those situations where if he gets 10 to 15 touches in this offense, and you got to make up targets somewhere with Jerry Jeudy being out for this game, if he gets in this range of volume in the passing game and gets 8 to 10 rushing attempts, there's always touchdown upside here from Melvin Gordon. And to pay this price tag off, you need around 10 to 11 Fanduel points in cash. I know it sucks. It definitely is one of those things where I am a little bit hesitant to say his name, but for the sake of this video, I think we could slot him in here and potentially put him in that flex spot as we move along. But one more name I want to get to here as we continue to talk is going to be this Jaylen Warren spot. We briefly talked about the situation brewing in Tampa Bay with Leonard Fournette and Rashad White. But Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris are currently going through something similar. I don't think it's as drastic, but at least we know that Najee Harris is dealing with some sort of injury. He could be forced to miss time, and if that's the case, and even if he doesn't miss time, Jaylen Warren was a guy that, I wish he was a little bit more efficient in his last couple matchups, but he is now entering this moment as, look at all the tough matchups that they've had here. This is just up and down, just pretty brutal schedule for running backs. And now we finally get to a situation where the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be in a really good running spot. So I think that this could be an interesting situation for Jaylen Warren to get 12 to 15 touches, if not handle the majority of the running back touches for this team. So I like this spot for Jaylen Warren quite a bit. Again, very, very early first week build. We may even go back and exchange some opinions and thoughts on this. So just because I'm clicking these players, you just wait till the end of the video to get the full first look, as we might kind of move some things around as we find that we have more or less money to work with. So we'll put Jaylen Warren here in this game. But again, I could see myself going to anybody else, maybe a Ramondre if Damian Harris is out, maybe a Tony Pollard if Zeke is out, and we'll go from there. Everything else kind of looks disgusting. I think people will maybe click on Devin Singletary's name again, and I'm going to take the victory lap and just keep where we had him on FanDuel and move forward from there, because we got not to say we got very lucky, because I think that the spot was good last week, but how many times is Devin Singletary going to get 2 touchdowns the rest of the season? My guess would be, outside of the playoffs, not very many times. Wide receiver, we have some money to work with here. We paid for 3 running backs under 7K, and the wide receiver position isn't really in shambles necessarily, but it is definitely dwindling, right? We have no Cooper Kupp. He's on the IR. Jamar Chase is going to miss this game with that hip injury. Stephon Diggs is probably going to be in a snow game, so 9,400 for him feels a little bit iffy. Justin Jefferson's workload here should be awesome, and it should be one of the most insane matchups of the season for him against Diggs. Like that is a playoff matchup right there. So if I'm choosing anybody, it is probably going to be Justin Jefferson to start things off here. But let's at least talk through the rest of the players first before moving forward. We have Devontae Adams going up against Denver. Tough matchup. I respect Denver's corners quite a bit. I respect their secondary quite a bit. Denver's defense is a defense that I'm kind of scared to target. And I feel like with the way the Raiders season is going, I know Adams is a great player, but man, they just can't seem to be doing anything consistently or right. So until I see a little bit more, I just can't go there. And Denver's defense, like I said, has been very, very good. Keep an eye on the AJ Brown thing. We're on the bad side of that. That ankle injury. Had very few targets compared to what he should have had last game, especially when AJ Brown's ever in a close game. That's when you need to target him, and he was in a close game last night, and it was one of those situations where I just expected more, and we didn't get it. So keep an eye on his injury. I think there's something going on there, but it is a nice bounce back spot for him, regardless of what that what that opponent ranking first tag says. Indianapolis is not the first team in the league against the wide receiver position. CeeDee Lamb in a massive usage spot against the Packers, completely balled out. I could see him being an awesome play at 8,100. So I definitely like that quite a bit. Other than that, though, I think we'll probably stick with CeeDee Lamb as this first look guy. I know I just said we want Jefferson, but let's see. Let's hold off a little bit until we see if we have enough money to do that. Because I know you probably can't play Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb considering their pricing on Fanduel, at least in the same build. Oh, sorry, catching up in the chat here. Yeah, all right. Let's go ahead and move down because we're going to get to the scary part of wide receiver really soon. T. Higgins, 7,600 against Pittsburgh. No Jamar Chase. Love the spot for T. Higgins. Can he be consistent? Hopefully after the bye week, they started to get some things out of their system here. I think the thing from T. Higgins last year to T. Higgins this year has a lot to do with Jamar, but it also just has to do with the lack of touchdowns that he's had, right? Because last season he just felt like a touchdown monster, and I feel like the target share is totally consistent and kind of on brand for what this offense has been the last two seasons, but he just isn't necessarily getting it done in the touchdown department. And at 7,600 on FanDuel, I'd be more willing to go to a guy like CeeDee Lamb at 8,100, who we know has the upside for touchdowns. And not to say T doesn't, because he does. But right now, I lean CeeDee Lamb over T. Higgins. Could we put him in the same build? We could. Down the line here, Cortland Sutton going up against Las Vegas with no Jerry Jeudy is somewhat interesting. But again, how many pieces do I want of Denver in this matchup? Probably only one. Terry McLaurin against Houston is an interesting matchup. I think that's, other than that, I mean, I don't love playing Amari Cooper on the road ever, so keep an eye on that. Donovan Peoples-Jones paid off big time last week, and he usually stands out on those road games, so keep an eye on that. Tyler Boyd at 6,800 is definitely a nice play off of T. Higgins. I wish we could get Boyd at a cheaper price. This is kind of what they did, was they put T. Higgins just below what Jamar Chase was doing, and then they put Tyler Boyd just below what T. Higgins was doing, and that's how they kind of made that assumption there. But I like that quite a bit there. What's going on, B Blazer? I appreciate it. If you want to give redraft thoughts, we can definitely talk about that after the stream. We're kind of talking about a first look daily fantasy FanDuel week 11 first look. But once we're done with this, we can definitely talk about that. DJ Moore against Baltimore. It's a middling play, right? 6,700 has kind of gotten to a point where we're not too comfortable with the price tag. But this is kind of where things start to get a little bit juicy for wide receivers. So we do have Allen Robinson coming in as the number one overall guy for the LA Rams coming into this week now. And I feel like there's something there to be said, right? Like, I know we haven't had the situation in the last several years, but if he's going to get an uptick of targets in this spot, maybe it's worth considering. So I think we should expect, if Stafford is quarterback and if he's healthy, should be in the range of 8 to 10 targets, maybe more. This is Rams do or die week, and I just feel like this is a situation where we got to take notice of that. So I don't mind Allen Robinson. I think that Darius Slayton against Detroit is interesting. I don't ever love it for cash, right? But if you're going to stream something against the Texans and you're not going to be playing Saquon Barkley because of his price, then you got to find out where you can play somebody for the Giants against them. So I don't mind Darius Slayton. Is an interesting price tag there. Curtis Samuel against Houston makes some sense. Darnell Mooney at 6K makes a lot of sense. As of right now, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put 6K Darnell Mooney in here. And I think that we can potentially take a look at some of these other guys. I don't mind looking at Adam Thielen a little bit. I also don't mind looking at a guy like Nico Collins, who's going to be my third wide receiver. Another great highlight. I've been sharing a lot of free content with our team on this stream already, but Nico Collins is going to be another guy that we have on the waiver wire article this week. I know we mentioned him a couple weeks back, but now Brandon Cooks hasn't been traded, but he's also lost his captain patch on the team, so he's not a captain for this Texans team anymore. And so the only real way, like we mentioned on our Monday night article last night, was the only way to beat Washington is through the air. And they are very good against the tight end, and they are very good against the run. Enter Nico Collins at 5,900. I think that we're going to find a spot very, very soon where maybe the Texans will just be really ignorant about this situation, but Brandon Cooks just is not going to play for the Texans anymore. And so make sure you note that when you're looking at rankings and when you're looking at playing him and when you're looking at doing anything else for this team, because I think Nico Collins is that number one overall option. And while we've ran into some bad variance personally on these main slates, what we saw last week, 10 targets in this spot, was very, very strong for Nico. So I'm not expecting a touchdown every single week, but I do like the spot quite a bit. So we'll go with Nico Collins at 5,900. This is going to give us a little bit more money, so we're going to be able to upgrade at one of the running back positions. I don't feel the best about Jaylen Warren, so we'll probably end up flexing up at the end of this first look here. Tight end, going to be a week where we just have so much, a little bit of injured news to monitor here at the top of the player pool. Mark Andrews, 7,700 obviously would be the best play if we knew if he was going to be good to go or not. My guess is even after having some time off that he's still not 100%, and obviously he'll log limited practices this week, etc., and he'll be like a game time decision or something. On a first look like this, I can't genuinely say that Mark Andrews is going to be in a cash game lineup this week, so I won't be doing that. We also know at the time of this that Dallas Goedert, Fanduel hasn't said it yet, but he's going to be out. He's going to miss extended time for whatever that means. So I think that we're in a situation where we could potentially look to pay down. If for those of you listening right now, either on YouTube or on Twitch, we're going to be doing the DraftKings first look, which is where we get to talk about the backup for the Eagles, Mr. Stoll, which is probably going to be a pretty awesome DraftKings play this week. TJ Hawkinson going up against the Vikings, or going up against the Dallas Cowboys in this game. That's going to be pretty much game of the week. Tyler Higbee without Cooper Kupp against New Orleans, tough matchup, but this could be just a force feed situation. 6,200 is a lot though, but the guy I want to get in here is not going to be Dalton Schultz, and maybe everybody thought that it was going to be, but it's actually going to be probably Cole Kmet if I can find a way to maybe flex up from Darnell Mooney. But we're going to talk about Kmet, Schultz, Foster Moreau in this range, and Greg Dulcich. I think these four guys, this is kind of where your player pool is going to wind up this week. And if for whatever reason Mark Andrews sits, then Isaiah Likely is right in this range as well. So yeah, I like a lot of tight ends in this area. So chat, feel free to give me your favorite tight end and we'll talk about it. And then this is kind of the part of the first look here where we'll cover defense, but then we'll also kind of backtrack and fit in a really good FanDuel first look build to finish this video off. So chat, feel free to give me your favorite tight end play, suggestions on maybe a play that I missed. I'd be willing to take a look back and talk about that with you guys. Dub, Astro Infinity, I appreciate you coming in here. I appreciate everybody hanging out. So make sure that if you are tuning in right now to be back around this general time frame tomorrow, where we're going to be doing the DraftKings first look. We'll also be uploading all these videos to YouTube so that you guys can use them as a baseline for your research process. Right now, though, I think I would say what we should do for this, considering we have Lamb already, we have Darnell Mooney already, we should probably be picking one of Foster Moreau or Greg Dulcich. Moreau got that touchdown last weekend. Dulcich was kind of a disappointment, but I do think that both are definitely viable here. What we'll probably end up doing, considering we already have Melvin Gordon, is just going with Foster Moreau at 5,600, which I think many people will gravitate towards, as he's going to be one of the better plays for the next month. Stoll gives the extra 1K savings if needed. Okay, good to know. I just don't think we'll need the extra 1K at this time, but I definitely think that we can go there. But yeah, for those of you wanting to know who this character is, Jack Stoll, 4,400 for the Eagles now that Dallas Goedert is going to be out for an extended period of time. Defense, we have really stacked group at the top of the slate here. I personally never like to pay up for defense on FanDuel. I never like to pay up for defense ever. So when it's season long versus daily fantasy, it's something that I just hate. I hate doing. And, I should have seen this coming last night, but I guess the Philly defense wasn't the play on FanDuel. And, it doesn't really matter because I was going to play Jake Elliott, and technically they score like the same amount of points. So it didn't really matter in general. But if you're playing tournaments this week, can't go wrong with the Eagles. Can't go wrong with the Ravens. I think that the Patriots are a really good play as well. And then you move down the list here. You start to get into the more cash game viable range where you have the Saints at 4,100 against what is going to either be John Wolford or Matthew Stafford with a banged up team. I like that play quite a bit. I think that Cincinnati is interesting at 4,200. I think that the Washington Commanders at 4K is interesting. And let's see if we can dumpster dive and see if there are any plays down here that make sense. Vegas against Denver, it was pointed out in the chat earlier before the stream. They're in play. I don't love the Falcons defense, but they are technically in play if Justin Fields is going to turn the ball over. Don't love that game, though, or don't love that spot, though, because that is the highest total game on the slate at 50 points. Trying to think of who else we could maybe go to here. The Giants are interesting, considering that this game's going to be outdoors. And, while Jared Goff did make a nice comeback against the Bears in that weather game the other day, he's generally known to not play very well when it gets below 30 degrees. So this should be a situation where that's a thing this week. Steelers against Cincinnati stands out as a streamer play that worked in the past. And that's kind of it. That's kind of where my interest stops. So for the sake of this first look, I just want to see what the Saints give us, because I know we're going to have some money to work with. So why don't we go ahead and see what we can do and upgrade Jaylen Warren. We may need to, I can always move Melvin Gordon to flex. So let's just go ahead and see what our player pool looks like. So we are able to get Justin Jefferson in this spot, which actually makes for an awesome play. Normally, I don't like to play only 2 running backs on FanDuel, and there's going to be instances where, I'm going to go out of my way to get that third running back as opposed to doing that, but I actually kind of like what this does for right now. Again, this is only a first look, but I really wanted to have pieces from both Dallas and Minnesota, and this would enable us to do that. We've seen both Dallas and Minnesota be shootout-worthy teams. Now they get to play each other in another insane environment, and the most important part is it's in a dome, so it's not going to affect anything weather-wise. But this is going to do it for the first look. Up and down, we'll go through the list here. I think that Justin Fields has one of the safest floors and ceiling combinations in NFL DFS these days. Brian Robinson, Melvin Gordon, both really, really solid matchups. I'm a little hesitant on Gordon as of right now just because of the workload that he is getting. I wish that he had a little bit a few more touches here in this spot, but with this game in Denver, with them losing Jerry Jeudy, we should see an uptick in the passing game work, and we know that Latavius Murray is not going to be involved in that passing game. So I don't mind Gordon at 5,900. Brian Robinson, great volume play against Houston. CeeDee Lamb, fantastic spot for the Dallas wide receivers, and we saw the monster usage from him in that Green Bay game. If this game stays close against Minnesota, Jefferson and Lamb should both eat. Darnell Mooney, a fantastic, really, really cheap streaming option for that QB wide receiver combination there. Nico Collins, the run back from Brian Robinson, not necessary in cash normally, but that should be an awesome spot for him. Again, I don't believe Brandon Cooks is going to be a Texan after this season, and that's going to force him to basically just say, I'm not playing anymore. Like I mentioned before, he doesn't have his captain patch for that team, so the team has frankly moved on from him, and he has moved on from them. There's been reports saying that Cooks has said, it's all love. The players understand where I'm coming from, but we're looking for good spots, and this is a great spot for a guy that's going to be a number 1 wide receiver on this team the rest of the season. So Nico Collins, get it before he gets too crazy. I think that this is a great spot for him. Foster Moreau, is a nice run back from Melvin Gordon. Like, I didn't try to do this on purpose because this is kind of more of a tournament lineup construction, but it's with cash game plays. Normally you don't have to do that for these kinds of things, but it kind of just worked out to where it did work out. So, and then the Rams offense is just putrid. No Cooper Kupp, and we'll see how healthy Matthew Stafford is this week. No running game is existent for this team, and New Orleans is playing at home, and it's just going to be a fantastic matchup for them as well. So this is a really nice first look build. The one thing I would change is probably finding a way to get another running back play that pops up throughout the week to potentially change to a more solid workload from Melvin Gordon to somebody else. Remember, we still have to worry about Zeke. We have to worry about a few other options that are going to be a little bit more banged up running back approaches. So maybe we get one of those situations like we did last week where Tony Pollard comes in and saves the day for that Dallas Cowboys team. So with that being said, we're going to end this stream for the first look today. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. And we're doing these things on Twitch, so make sure to come back every single Tuesday for the Fanduel First Look live stream, the DraftKings First Look for every single week throughout the rest of the playoffs for the NFL on Wednesdays, and we'll be more in touch on the Twitch side of things as we move along towards the end of the season. So appreciate you all. This is the Week 11 First Look build for Fanduel. I'm Jared Block. Good night and good skill.